And this is one of my favorite people on the planet, next to um, Jay Powell of the Fed, Janet Yellen, our Treasury Secretary. You know, we put like 80 videos on my channel so far. Out of 80, maybe 10 talk about the shenanigans the Fed has been pulling. Now, their hand is kind of forced to do what they do because they have to save the economy. I talked about, right, them printing 800 billion only during the great financial crisis. In the European crisis, 3 trillion. During COVID, close to 6 trillion. And there will be another black swan event that they have to print, I don't know, 12 trillion to save the economy, because too big to fail. They don't let anything fail. They just clean up the garbage, kick the can down the road, right? But then that comes because there's two policies in this country: fiscal policy and monetary policy. Well, Fed is kind of forced. Their hands are forced because our politicians in Washington, if you ever watch this, any politician, please come on the show and let's do an interview with you, whoever you are, any senator, any House member. All you guys do is spend money, tax and spend, tax and spend. I'm going like, okay, when our deficits are at $34 trillion, trillion with a T, and Bitcoin is only $1.5 trillion, think about it. So $34 trillion, what does the Fed have to do? Well, guess what? That debt is an IOU. Countries all around the world own our ass. Chinese being the largest one at the moment, and we're going to talk about that on the next one, which is kind of a good segue into the next topic, but I want to talk about this first. Janet Yellen issues serious 34 trillion warning as Bitcoin. Did you listen to me, Janet? Is that what's happening here? And predicted as Bitcoin is predicted to surge to 1 million price. Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? The problem with this is when the Fed raises the rates, which they did, because they created inflation by printing all that money, right? So it's man-made, nothing more, nothing less. Guess what? That $34 trillion servicing, that's an IOU. There is an interest rate attached to these bonds and notes and bills that they're issuing every single day by the billions, right? For what? To make up for the deficit, because as a country, we take in, let's say, hypothetically, $4 trillion in revenue, which is tax revenue, but then we spend $5.5 trillion. Okay, so that $1.5 trillion has to be made up somehow. How is that made up? That's made up by creating more debt. We have to borrow. The only way we can borrow, by the way, we're the world's reserve currency. If that changes, we are in deep, deep shit, people. Trust me. So Janet Yellen finally issues a warning about 34 trillion debt. While because the Fed created the inflation, now they're trying to kill inflation. The antidote for killing inflation, to kill inflation is higher interest rates. Well, we had zero interest rates, zero interest rate policy for years, for a decade and a half. Now we went from 0 to 5%, right? All our car loans went up, mortgages went up, everything is kind of teetering at the edge because we just went up from 0 to 5. Historically, actually 5 is pretty low interest rate still, but nobody is used to it because nobody studies this stuff. But anyway, just the servicing, the debt interest payments on that 34 trillion when the rates were at 0 was very low, couple hundred billion. Now, just that part jumped to 870 billion. We have to pay interest to the people who hold our ass, hold our bonds, right? And finally, Janet, good old Janet, is talking about it, saying, hey, but again, their hands are tied. The Fed's hands are tied because of fiscal policy. Our fiscal policy is so garbage that we created this $34 trillion anchor, I call it anchor, in the economy. And just to service it, we have to come up with 870 billion a year, this year alone, to pay people interest around the globe. How's that working for you? No. But then who am I, right? But I've been talking about this for years. And actually, I'm talking about this on the channel. So this is gonna be bad. This is gonna end badly. Again, my lifetime, I'm not worried about me, but my kids, why should they be saddled with $35 trillion? And it's going up like $1 trillion a year, by the way. So why should they be saddled with all this debt? Somebody has to pay this. Well, it will never get paid back, actually, because it's impossible. Imagine, how do we pay this back? How? No way, no how, right? But then the anchor just keeps getting larger. That's dragging under our boat. Okay. So please, Washington, stop. Just balance your budget. Just like I balance my budget at home. Please balance your budget. This is not a way to live. If this was me, I'd be bankrupt like 10 times over already. Okay. This is just, I run my household with a budget. Why can't you idiots over there get a hold of yourselves? You know what it is though? It's called OTM, other people's money. They collect the taxes and then they spend it. I'm like, well, don't spend it. If your budget is 4 trillion, you collect 4 trillion, you balance the budget, that 34 trillion will stay constant. In fact, it may even go down if you balance your budget in a manner that I do in my household. So Janet is warning. I've been warning. Market's kind of sensing this. Mr. Hussman on the first topic, he's looking at this and going like, okay, this shit's gonna hit the fan. And once in a while, the shit is gonna hit the fan. The US national debt is rising by 1 trillion every 100 days. This is the chief strategist of Bank of America. Think about this, people. 1 trillion, the national debt, every 100 days. Think about it. Think how messed up this is. And out of that 1 trillion, 870 billion is just the interest payments, right? So Mr. Hartnett predicted the newly created spot Bitcoin exchange traded funds, which is all connected now, right? How do we protect ourselves from inflation and this calamity? Well, we put our money into something that's not going to lose value while we're sitting on it, just like the fiat currency. And, that's why Bitcoin is Bitcoin. And that's why people are believing in it. And that's why gold has been going up. That's why real estate has gone up in this country, because the true hedge of inflation is hard assets. You need to own hard assets. Paper is garbage. You need to own, and that's why there is the saying, cash is trash. That's because they made it trash. But so, Janet, I agree with you. First time I agree with you. Again, Congress, fix this shit. This is garbage. Don't mortgage my kids' future because you guys are on a spending spree. Okay.